Did O.J. Simpson have an elaborate escape plan on the day of the Bronco chase? Was there a surprise person that showed up at Nicole Brown Simpson's funeral that wanted to punch O.J. Simpson in the face? A.C. Cowling's white Bronco, did it ever show up after the Bronco chase? And what famous person showed up and attended the infamous dance recital just hours before the murders on June 12th, 1994. Welcome, everybody. I'm Tom Zenner, host of 1 Degree of Scandalous here on Tom Zenner Scandal. This is the one and only Kato Kalin, co-host of 1 Degree of Scandalous. And
Pound it, yes. Oh, wow.
What a past week, huh, Kato?
What a saga. It really was. It was, honestly, Tom, comments from people that everybody had said, this is better than any TV show I've ever seen. And I'm not saying because we have a podcast together. I'm just telling you because I was on the edge of my seat on every episode we did. The way that you were in studio, and then we had 5 people involved. I mean, that's never been done before.
Yeah.
And it was just compelling. And as you know, just our YouTube channel, it's over, I think it's probably 1,000 comments that just in like 2 days on a show.
Yeah.
And everybody's just so into it. And I am too.
Yeah, and those questions I was asking at the very beginning here, we're going to answer all of them. If you followed all 3 episodes of the saga, you may have heard it, you may have missed it. But man, Kato, I think the one thing that shocks me about us doing that 3-part saga was I learned things that I didn't know about the OJ saga. And we did this on the 30-year anniversary. 30 years ago, and we nailed those dates too, June 12th, June 14th, and June 17th. So go back and watch all 3 if you haven't, but we're going to cover a lot of the ground here and just kind of rehash, those 3 episodes. And we're taking questions from our fans. And man, we got a lot, well over 1,000 I had to sift through here, and I came up with some great ones.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, Tom, I don't know if people come up to you, they go, hey, Kato, I watched all your episodes. Did you have a favorite one? And I don't. They're all just that good because we learned something different from everyone. And these questions that people have asked are, like as I'm reading over some of the questions, going, these are great questions. I think we have a bunch of our audience, possible lawyers.
I'll tell you what, man, they're into this saga, and you think, are we going to be covering this 30 years from now on the 60-year anniversary of this? And who knows, we might be, because it's the one story that transcends everything, because you can't get enough of it because of everything that was involved.
Yeah.
You can't make this stuff up. This couldn't even be fiction. It's too crazy. And there's still question marks. There's still things you don't know. There's still theories you hear. Now, a lot of them are crackpot and don't make any sense, but it just goes to show that there's just an insatiable appetite for any morsel of information about this.
And I'll tell you why. It's because, first of all, it'll always go on forever because every trial, it'll be the template. I've said it before. Everything's going to be compared to that. But the thing is, every person that watches any trial, especially the trial, the O.J. Simpson trial, it's because they want to be judged. They want to have their opinion. There are people that love, there's people that hate, but everybody wants to have a connection to it. Because sometimes they just say to themselves, see, my life's not that bad. And they just see someone else with trouble with what they're going through. And it's just compelling.
Yeah.
A defense team going against a prosecution team. It's like a soap opera.
Yeah, it's like watching a movie over and over again that you really like. It's like reading a trashy novel, right? That, you're hanging on every page.
Yeah.
Because there's so many other subplots to this story. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to sprinkle in some of the questions that our fans and viewers have sent in, and there's some great ones. And then we're going to address some of those topics that I brought up at the very beginning of the show, because you're going to learn some things about the Bronco. You're going to learn some things about the recital. You're going to learn some things about Nicole Brown Simpson's ex-boyfriend, who just shed so much light on our show. So here, I'm going to get to the first question. Are you ready for this?
Yeah.
Kato, did you stay in the guest house while OJ was in jail awaiting trial? If not, when did you leave and where did you go? And this comes from Crypto Catherine. Thanks for the question.
It's a great question, Crypto Catherine. I got out as fast as I could, and I'll tell you why I got out. It's because everybody started visiting and bringing over foods, and it was more of a party. And that was the first day. That's when OJ brought me into the kitchen during the party. He came up to me and said, "You remember that I was in the kitchen with you at McDonald's?" And immediately when he said that, I said, "He's lying. I don't want to be here. I don't know what else he's going to try to, convince me about that wasn't true."
Yeah.
So I moved out immediately. I moved in with a buddy just for a few days, and then I got a place near the Ivy restaurant, that behind that area, and I stayed there for a few months off of Robertson. Yeah. So that's where I went, And people found out immediately. I had paparazzi at that time in the 90s. They knew exactly where I lived. I had notes under my door. There was nothing like it because there's no way I could not be seen. And then anybody that saw me would tell other people. And that's how it happened. So but the question, Crypto, Catherine, is I moved out pretty much within 24 hours.
Got the hell out of there.
Yeah.
And plus, that was almost a crime scene. And then a few days later, that's where the Bronco ended up on the chase. So you weren't living there, even though they try to make it seem like that on the the FX special, right?
And they did a lot of embellishing. It wasn't there. And they put in the Kardashians a lot of scenes because the Kardashians, they're a draw. They're total social media. So they'd be fools not to draw in more of an audience.
Yeah. One of the pivotal moments of the trial, of course, is when OJ put on the gloves. They didn't fit. And people say, well, he's an actor. He could act. And he did. He overacted that part. But he's not that good of an actor, right? He could pull that off in front of a friendly jury that wanted to believe that he didn't do it. So that was fine, the acting. But when he confronted you at the house about, the timeline, essentially, you had to feel, because it's not like you were buddies with OJ, right? You were friends with Nicole and OJ was around and he was a presence, but you had to feel you were being set up at that moment, right? For the timeline.
At that moment. Yeah, I did. That's when everything kind of changed, where I was like, why would he say that? Why is he blatantly lying when he knows? I never saw him leave the foot of the door of his car, the Bentley. And that was it. But yeah, that was where it was a blatant lie. And I wasn't an enemy. I mean, the guy, I lived on his property, but he worked, I don't know how many jobs. So he was rarely around. So, and that was it.
Yep. Okay, let's get to one of the topics I discussed at the very top of the show. Did O.J. Simpson have an elaborate escape plan at his disposal on the day of the Bronco chase? So June 17th, we went through that big time with Tom Lang and Jim Murray. Go back and watch that episode. But what Tom Lang told us that day, what the LAPD found out, was that OJ had contracted a yacht off the Bahamas, that he had rented a yacht and obviously would have been prepared to use it because he was in the Bronco with the disguised $9,000 cash, a gun, and a passport. So, I mean, you need a passport in the Bahamas. So I'll just tell you what I think. Do I think that OJ had 5 days to figure out how the hell I'm going to get out of this? Hell yeah. I'm sure he was thinking about it when he was on the plane coming back from Chicago. And all these things that just didn't add up. When the detectives called him about the murders and he didn't ask about his kids. I mean, that to me stands out more than anything. So he's in a mode where it's cover my ass, right? How do I explain the finger? How do I explain my timeline? Right. How do I explain this goofy behavior? And I believe that he probably did rent a yacht that he may have used. And he had a lot of hours on that day of the 17th. Part of that could have been somehow to try to get to the Bahamas. Yeah. How about you?
I wonder, that's one of the things you said, I didn't know that. One of those facts that came up that Tom Lang brought up. I don't know if that was on a credit card of his or if he had a friend do it, but how could he basically do that though? He's the most seen person in the world. How is he going to get on a boat? In his mind, does he think that he's going to get away with it? That no one's going to recognize O.J. Simpson going, and then where does he get the boat? Is he going to get it in Mexico? And the Mexico to the Bahamas? That's you got to have gas. I think you have to stop. There's no possible way that trip was going to work out for him. Personally, I don't believe it, but I do believe he was trying some sort of escape for the reason of having a mask.
Right,
$9,000 in cash.
Yeah, so I believe he probably rented it through one of his LLCs or something to keep it on the down low, which the detectives uncovered. And then my thought would be he would go from the Bahamas to a place where he can't be extradited. Because when you did these murders and is graphic and just over the top and disgusting as they were, he was probably thinking, I'd rather just bop from island to island where they can't bring me back and I'll just survive that way. But you had made a good point too, that you thought that he felt empowered on the Bronco chase with the cheering of the fans, and that maybe gave him life thinking, I could beat this.
I was just going to ask you, I said, what was the moment you think that he said to himself, I'm going to win? Do you think it was because his lawyers convinced him we can beat this? Do you think his lawyers at one point said, people hate the LA cops. We're going to beat this thing. And they start planting things to become race? I believe that's what happened. They planted everything that they knew it would be. He'd be acquitted. At some point, they read the jury. They had the jury they wanted, and it went their way.
I think he was maybe thinking along the lines when he was talking to Shapiro early, before Johnny Cochran entered, that let's consider a plea here. So maybe he was thinking he could plead out early on in the stages, but that was before the Bronco chase and everything. I'm talking about maybe the Tuesday and Wednesday as they're trying to figure out where this could possibly go, and as the pressure's mounting, the walls are caving in, and the evidence is piling up.
Yeah, do you remember the trial though? What was going on? They always every tabloid show and every news show would say the defense team are having fights together. They're fighting in between themselves. I think that Shapiro and Cochran butted heads the entire time, and I think Cochran's was the one that said, I can get OJ out of this. And Shapiro was the lead. Do you remember that? And then it took over that Cochran became the lead attorney, like 3 months into it. So that changed the whole dynamic.
Yeah, and that's when they made it all about race, and that was Johnny Cochran's specialty, and you're not going to beat him when it comes to that, not in Los Angeles. And Robert Shapiro isn't a great trial lawyer. He's not a criminal defense lawyer of that level that's getting murderers off.
He's not a litigator.
He's a fixer. Right, he's a guy that's connected everywhere, can make things happen, and that's who you call initially, right? And then you rely on him to assemble the team. Weitzman was his very early.
No one remembers that. Weitzman was the original.
Yeah, and he didn't last long either. Yeah. And there was the talk about the lie detector test that OJ took that week and allegedly failed with flying colors. I'm surprised he even agreed to take that test. Right, because I already said he's not a great actor. He's probably not that great of a liar either, and you're not going to beat a lie detector test. Remember when we had the FBI, the former head of the FBI polygraph division, and these guys aren't missing anything. When you're strapped up for an hour or two and it's reading, your every single molecule
of emotion, it's a lie or not a lie.
You're not getting away with it.
Beep, beep.
All right, here's another question from one of our fans, Luann Poovy and Kato. At the first moment you found out that your friend Nicole was murdered, what were your thoughts and emotions? And then a follow-up to that is, did you meet up with Nicole's close friends anytime soon after or during the trial to discuss and hash out what OJ allegedly did?
Well, I heard that she had been killed. I believe those are the words. I don't think I heard it from Tom Lang when he was in the kitchen of OJ's house, and I was on the couch in OJ's living room. I overheard that, and I didn't know when he said the killed. I didn't think murder. It's just coming out because I thought OJ was gone. I knew he went to Chicago, so I didn't think that. I didn't tie the two together. And when the police escorted me out and said, don't step on the blood," my mind started going, blood, and then I started thinking, why is there blood here? In my mind, I start playing a little bit detective, and the next thing you know, I'm at the Santa Monica police station for over 8 hours in a. I probably an interrogation room, but they were nice to me and letting me walk around and take bathroom breaks. And they just questioned me over and over and over, and I was consistent on everything I said because it was the truth. Yeah. Now, as far as the other one, no, I didn't. I didn't connect to anybody else. I didn't talk to anybody. I went back to the house. I saw there was a kind of the people bringing food over. And that's when I said before, that's when I went in the kitchen and OJ was there and he brought me in and wanted me to say that I saw him. So that was it. And I left. And frankly, I didn't want to see anybody. I was in a state of what's going on. And I didn't even know I didn't know there was going to be a thing where I was a witness. I didn't know anything about me at one point having to get a lawyer because someone said, you're going to get a lawyer. So I had a friend that said, there's someone that would take you on. And the lawyer that I had, he's passed away. His name is William Janego. He was the best thing that ever happened to me. Just a straight shooter. And he was confused. He was talking to me, not sure to take me on, and he didn't know my involvement. And he just sat at the end of a table and asked me complete questions. By the end of the 2 or 3 hours, he just said, yeah, okay. I know your story. Well, I'm going to help you out. Well, pro bono.
Okay, there's nothing better than having a good, competent lawyer, right? When you need it, nothing better than that. It calms all your nerves. It gives you confidence and hope. And just to think how your life had changed in the span of a week because you're running a casting business. You're up for a big part in Dumb and Dumber. And as an actor who comes over from Milwaukee, I mean, getting a big gig like that, I mean, could have been career-changing, life-changing, but all of that goes on the back burner then. And you're dealing with this ever-changing 24-hour minute-by-minute thing where just you're bombarded, right? It's like getting hit with a sledgehammer every time you turn around, and you didn't have time for impromptu therapy groups with Nicole's friends, and some of them were kind of crackpots anyway. When you talk about Faye Resnick and some of the other ones, it's not like you're calling them up and commiserating, so I understand that.
Yeah, I thought all of our friends were pretty, I liked them all. They were all really very kind to me, so I never, they're I don't know what they're doing in their life now, but they were always very cool. And you know what, Nicole did have that clique of friends that they all ran together, and she was happiest around them. I think she was happy that the kids went to school, and then she went on her jog with them, and they were, I saw Kris Jenner with Nicole as one of her best friends, and then I would see the kids. This is the kids are small, and this is Kim, Chloe, Courtney, Sydney, and Justin, all just friends. This clique they had. And I knew when I saw Kris with her kids, I knew that they were being molded. They were going to be stars. I knew that she knew how to direct her kids into becoming money-making machines. And it was right. And I noticed that because I also met Paris Hilton back when she was a kid, back in the day when Rick Hilton and Kathy Hilton became my friends because I was great friends with Ron Hilton, Barron's son, and all these things. I met these people who are superstars now, and I knew they were just molded to become superstars. And let's face it, they were just gorgeous kids.
Yeah, think about it. Little did you know that a couple of them would be billionaires. Billionaires. And yeah, you could tell, power players like that, like Kris Jenner. I mean, think what you want about the Kardashians, but she is a beast, and you can't train that. You can't coach that. She's a puppet master at the highest level, and she knows how to make the right decisions, the right PR moves, the right media stunts, whatever it takes. But then it's one thing to launch that, but to fuel it and keep it going and turning it into a $1 billion business, you got to give them a lot of credit.
I tell you a real quick story, Tom. I had gone over to the Jenners, Bruce Jenner with Kris Jenner, and they'd had a cookout. We did the volleyball. I think I was there twice or so. But I got to tell you, I would never think in a billion years that Bruce Jenner would become Caitlyn Jenner. And throughout that, so there must have been a lot of secrets between those two. It's what's going on. So that kind of blew me away because I also did events where I would see Bruce as Bruce golfing, like for Wounded Warrior. Yeah. And then that change happened within that since the 30-year saga.
We want to thank American Hartford Gold for making the O.J. Simpson saga possible and for also being part of today's episode. While we like the shocking world of celebrity scandal, don't let financial scandals threaten your retirement funds. We're all feeling the bite of soaring inflation, but our financial future is endangered by a host of other problems, like failing banks, astronomical national debt, and a looming recession. It almost feels criminal, but fortunately, there is a way to protect your hard-earned retirement savings, physical gold and silver. And when it comes to diversifying your savings and tangible assets, I trust American Hartford Gold, and you should too. Whether you want physical gold and silver delivered right to your door or prefer a tax-advantaged gold IRA, they've got you covered. Their customer service is top-notch. It's amazing, guiding you every single step of the way. And here's the best part. When you mention my name, Tom, you'll receive up to $15,000 worth of free silver on qualifying purchases. Gold has been hitting record highs and shows no signs of stopping, making now the perfect time to secure your nest egg. So don't wait. Call 866-718-8939 or text TOM, T-O-M, to 998899 for your free gold information kit today. Again, that's 866-718-8939 or simply text TOM to 998899. Well, plus your first impression of Bruce Jenner when you see him is Olympic decathlon champion, greatest athlete in the world. That's the title that goes with it. So he was a man's man, just an amazing athlete. Right. The last time I saw Caitlyn was at this event in Beverly Hills maybe 2 or 3 years ago, and we were backstage, and she was just mesmerized by the names Zenner, Jenner, Zenner.
That is a great story.
And it was so weird because she's Bruce Jenner, formerly Bruce Jenner, now Caitlyn Jenner, is saying this to me in a ball gown, which is just like, when you're face to face, it just takes a little bit of time to process that.
Nothing against it.
No, of course not.
Decision, but that I would love to see on tape. Hi, Caitlyn Jenner, Tom Zenner, Zenner Jenner. It's
Zenner
Oprah,
Jenner.
He was just Oprah.
She couldn't get enough of that. Zenner Jenner. By the way, 1976 is when Bruce Jenner won the Olympic decathlon in Montreal, and I was such a sports freak growing up, athlete. I started recreating all those events of the Olympics,
right?
Of the decathlon.
Wow.
So we had this shed with a sand floor, and I was doing the long jump like Bruce Jenner at the time. Like I was 9 or whatever I was. And I fell back and broke my wrist impersonating Bruce Jenner at the time. My first broken bone.
That is great. And by the way, Tom looks great in a ball gown. Here we go. No, we go to more questions. More questions.
It was mandatory.
Yeah.
It was mandatory. Keith Zlomsowicz.
Yeah.
We pulled him out of the woodwork, and that was one of the things I referenced at the very beginning of the show. And that's episode 2 of our saga. And we can't thank Keith enough for making himself available from the Bahamas, and he doesn't do interviews. The only other big interview he's done before that was the ESPN special that won the Oscar. And he was a big part of episode, I think, 4. I think episode 4 of that, where the story shifted to him. But man, there were so many nuggets that we learned from him. Number one, that he was the ops manager for Mezzaluna. So there's another connection to the whole thing. And let's get to the funeral. And he was a pallbearer.
Yeah.
And, you know, he was that close with Nicole and dated him. And then when OJ cut that off again and she wanted to go back with him, he stepped away and was just her friend. But he literally told us the tension was so high at that funeral that he did wanted to smack him right in the face. And I'm frankly impressed by the fact that he was able to hold back and not do it like behind the scenes or something. Because like, who wouldn't want to do that? If you know in your mind what he was capable of, what he'd done in the past, I mean, you'd want to do that for your friend.
Right. Yeah. And I was at that funeral. So I felt the tension, and there was tension. And then there was the get together at, I think, the Browns' house. We all went there. And yeah, there was just something not right. And it was just basically OJ in the dark glasses sitting on a couch looking like he was medicated. So I never knew that story about, I don't remember Keith as the pallbearer. I know he is, but I don't remember that. It was, like 30 years ago that I'm saying that was it was surreal, the funeral you could feel tension of the families, and it just, he's sitting with the Browns, and the Browns, I think they're on record a lifetime thinking that he had done it. They had their opinion and he's sitting on their couch. Think about this. How do you not go crazy? How do you not confront someone right there?
They had to be disgusted with themselves after the fact, because they knew. And then when the truth came out, or the facts started revealing themselves, the fact that they let him into their home after that funeral. The thing that struck me about the funeral, and you were there, was there an element of celebrating her life? It seemed like there was a lot of stories being told about her that were a little bit lighter. I felt like the vibe at that thing was a little bit lighter than I expected it to be. I thought there would be more deep, heavy mourning and things like that, but it almost seemed like it was by the ocean and it was lighter, and we're here to celebrate her life a little bit.
No, I'm the opposite of that. At least that was my feeling. I just felt tension the whole time, and I felt uncomfortable being there, because I just felt like there was, like I said, tension in the air, and it was tense to everybody. And just the fact that Keith was a pallbearer that wanted to slug OJ, tension, and OJ not shaking everybody's hand but his. Mm-hmm. So people see that. They are aware. And there's there was quite a lot of paparazzi, because I think a lot of the magazines had the funeral pictures. Yeah.
Okay, here's a question from Snarky Grumpkin. Okay, Kato has said publicly that he believes OJ is responsible, but does Kato think he did it all alone? Or is there a possibility in your mind, Kato, that someone else was at the scene with OJ, or that they helped him get rid of evidence afterwards?
Well, I'll go to the last part. Getting help with the evidence, I don't know. That was a detective's job. Could have happened. It could have happened. I don't know. But this was the most investigated case of over 150 detectives. The FBI has just released files, 775 pages, I believe, or 575 pages of FBI files. The most investigated murder case in the history of California, I think possibly the United States. So these guys are smart detectives. They came up with OJ as the only person. So I go with that OJ was the only person. And I think that all the things that happened afterward of him trying to escape kind of prove that.
Yeah.
And that's my opinion, but I think it's the right opinion. I think that's Tom Lang's opinion. I think that's all the main detectives on the case.
Yeah. That day of the murders, Paula Barbieri broke up with him that morning. So there was a lot of things fueling his emotions that day. And then the dance recital snub, if you want to call it that, or whatever happened. And then the timeline where Nicole's mom forgot the glasses and Ron brings that over. I mean, these murders were so violent and so horrific that he didn't need help. What's he going to do? Call someone at 11 o'clock or 1 o'clock in the afternoon and say, hey, Can you help me go murder Nicole Brown, my ex-wife, today?
Yeah.
I mean, no. I mean, this is all rage. This is all emotion. This is a lunatic that's snapped. And you know what? It's you can incapacitate someone immediately with a knife. They're not going to be able to fight back. Yes, you could kill 2 people on the doorstep of her Bundy home by yourself.
Yeah.
No, there's nobody else that was involved in the actual murders, in my opinion. It's impossible to convince me any other way. And there's no way they wouldn't have found out. And OJ would have sold someone out and tried to pin it all on them.
Right.
So there's no way anybody else, in my opinion, was involved in the actual murders that day.
Yeah, my people just want to have a theory. That's just my opinion, your opinion. I think we're correct in that. But so yesterday I'm at the Brewer game and people are coming up to me. So this guy asked me a question and he said, Kato, I'm addicted to the OJ saga and Tom and you, what you're doing with this. He goes, is there something that bothers me? And I thought this question it made me think, yeah, I didn't know what happened. He goes, if OJ with the knife is doing that stuff, there's going to be blood everywhere. As we saw the crime scene, it was horrific. Blood everywhere. What happened to the clothes? And so I said, I have no idea. I'm thinking, did he wear something special that he could dispose of, plastic, in that handbag that was never found, that college duffel bag? Or did he wear something from that Navy SEAL show that he was wearing, a wetsuit or whatever? But that's such a great question of what would have happened to all the blood that would have squirted out.
Yeah.
And I don't know the answer. And I don't know if it was in that, if he's wearing something, it's premeditated, that he knows he's going over for that reason. I mean, we're never going to know, but that's a question that I don't know the answer to. It's always bothered me.
Yeah, and that comes down to, was it premeditated? Did he go over there to murder her? Right. And then Nicole or Ron shows up on the scene, or did he go over there to slash his tires? Harvey Levin, that's his theory, that he went over there to slash his tires, and then the murders happened after that. Harvey also had an interesting point on his documentary where OJ had an office in Brentwood, in between Bundy and Rockingham. He thinks that OJ may have gone to his office after the murders, switched Broncos with Al Collings, and dumped the clothes there. Okay, so that's part of Harvey's theory, that he went there to slash the tires and then went to his office real quickly, and then the vehicles were switched. So I'm not sure about that. He had slashed her tires before. That's one way of him getting her attention and punishing her for talking with other men. I think on that Levin documentary, he also said that OJ drove by that Starbucks on San Vicente in Brentwood days earlier, a week earlier, whatever, and saw Nicole talking to Ron there. So he knew who Ron Goldman was.
This is in Harvey's documentary.
Yeah, it's a pretty good one. You know, Harvey also had something fascinating in there, that he was out to dinner one night right after the trial, and he was with his producer, and they were talking about it, and they decided to go over to Bundy, to the scene there, just to drive by it.
Right.
And they show up in the alley, and there's a limousine parked there. And they thought it was really weird. And then the limousine started inching away. And then it started speeding up, and they decided to follow it. And they followed this limousine through a high-speed chase that ended up, wait for it, at Rockingham. The gates open, and somebody gets out and goes into Rockingham. So he's convinced it was OJ visiting the scene of the crime later. And just the odds of Harvey Levin being there at the same time and then following it all the way to Rockingham, and then the gates open, and then allegedly OJ gets out and walks in.
So that had to happen almost immediately, because otherwise he was in jail.
No, this was after the trial. That after he was acquitted, OJ went back to the scene of the crime, and by a lark, Harvey decided to go there at that same time, and then ended up chasing him. That was unbelievable.
Well, you bring that point up real quick, because we have so many questions to answer. But the show we did with Jill Shively, that still is, I think that was a witness that should have been called. Just because she sold her story, who cares? It's still a fact that she saw the Bronco OJ coming through. That is just, that it perfects the timeline. Yeah. And it perfects it with Alan Park, the limo driver. So all these things that we had in our show, I didn't know all about. And then I said, my God, they could just the timeline itself proves guilt.
And then you get back to whatever happened to the bloody clothes. So, could he have done it at his office? Well, that brings in the witness that we had on the show, Skip Junis, who was at LAX, who saw OJ reach into that duffel bag and meticulously take out items and dump them into the trash can, which Tom Lang and his partners never found out until about later when it was too late to go to the dumpster. But that's a logical theory. And then OJ's thinking minute by minute there. He, like, if this wasn't premeditated, he didn't have a plan for what to do after. So you have to make it up on the fly. And it would make sense that if I'm going to LAX, I can dump this there and get rid of it.
Right.
Okay, I mentioned the AC Cowling's white Bronco and what may have happened to that. So another fascinating thing that came out of our saga, which Jim Murray shared with us, was Jim Murray tracked down AC Cowling's white Bronco about 20 years after the murders. Somewhere between Fresno and the Bay Area, he said. He didn't pin down the exact city. He went there and did a story with Inside Edition and actually drove it.
Yeah.
And the speedometer only had 20 more miles on it than it had back in 1994. So this thing had been sitting somewhere. Someone bought it and they found it. Now, OJ's white Bronco, no, these are identical Broncos. His is in a museum in Tennessee right now. Did you ever see AC Cowlings interact with OJ when you were living with them?
Oh, yeah, they were best friends.
So he was around the house a lot?
Yeah.
And
Did
you know he had another Bronco that was exactly the same?
They parked the Bronco in the driveway. Yeah, I saw that. And that's that kind of blows me away because it is his best friend. He's the one that's driving the Bronco in the Bronco chase. And I don't know if AC Cowling, and by the way, that's one of the questions if we can get him as a guest. I wonder how hard it would be to get him a guest and how truthful he'd be even on the show, because it's always blown me away. You never hear anything about that. At one point, he had an AC Cowling did a dial this number and I'll talk to you for back in the days when you could do 800 numbers or 900 numbers. You remember that?
Well, yeah, he had to make money somehow.
Yeah, so that went on and. It's really interesting, and I'm not sure if he was on those documentaries or not.
Here's my theory on AC. There's no way he's talking. We'll try to get him. I'll try.
Yeah.
But I think he'd be in fear of incriminating himself because he's involved somehow, right? He knows more than we think he does. OJ had to rely on somebody to help with something along the way. And the one guy, his true confidant, is AC. That's his guy.
Yeah.
So there's no way AC's talking because he'd be in danger of saying something that could get him in deep trouble.
That's his best friend. Even though he's best friends and he loved Nicole, he was definitely OJ's best friend. And, some of the questions people were asking, we won't answer them because they're asking, do you think we can get a juror on? Do you think we can get some of the kids on or anything? Those would be great. Yeah. I don't know if we can, but, maybe our saga ended, but we can always bring back people.
Yeah.
Because like you said, this will go on and we've got so many, obviously the Moscow, Idaho, the Kohlberger trial, that's coming up. We want to be involved with that.
Yeah, we're going to hit other scandals.
We'll always relate back to OJ.
I think Kim Goldman's a definite possibility. I think she would have done the saga, but she was tied up with other things. Maybe one of the Browns, I think we could get. Fred Goldman, I heard, suffered a stroke recently. And he lives in Phoenix, so I'm not sure if he's going to be able to do interviews. I'm also going to track down the ghostwriter of OJ's book if I did it. So I'm going to try to get him on in the next few weeks. But yeah, we're going to keep coming back to this. And there's always going to be guests that we can get that we haven't had before. We're also going to bring Tom Lang back to talk about serial killers. I want to dive deep into the Wonderland murders, the Hillside Strangler, Richard Ramirez, all these cases that he was involved in, because he was as well known for doing that as he was with the OJ saga.
Right.
And he is just, people can't get enough of Tom Lang, and I can't either.
Yeah, people can't get enough of true crime, and I'm addicted to it. And I watch pretty much everything that's on from Discovery, Forensic Files, and beyond. And it's just because it's so real, and there's people out there that, Tom, I don't know if you know, they interviewed psychologists, all crime forensic psychologists, and they try to compare of who's the psychopath that is in film, of who nails as number one of what a psychopath is, and they nailed it to, and they did hundreds of studies. It's Javier Bardem in No Country for Old Men. They say that character is how they really are. When they're a psychopath.
That's Clooney's movie, isn't it?
No Country for Old Men's Coen Brothers won the Oscar.
The Coen Brothers, okay.
Yeah.
Clooney was in that? I thought George Clooney was in it. Maybe not. Okay.
No, Josh Brolin, Tommy Lee
So that's
Jones.
the template, huh?
Yeah.
For a sociopath?
For that character that he played.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, here's another question from a fan here. Lisa Bigler. Okay, during the trial, an anonymous correctional officer had said Rosie Greer came to visit OJ and he was a pastor. OJ asked him if God would forgive him. She's just curious if anyone else remembers hearing that. I definitely have heard of Rosie Greer hearing the confession of OJ in prison. 100%. I think that did happen.
Yeah, and Rosie was one of the people that came to the house. He was there every day, right after the OJ being interviewed at the police, like on June. Would be like the 14th, 15th. He was there when they're trying to do some consoling.
Sure. Yeah. So, you're going to lean on a spiritual advisor,
Right.
which Rosie Greer was, plus a former NFL player. So they had a lot in common there. And then, so we've tried to get Rosie on this show too, and I'm not going to rule that out.
Yeah.
Okay. Here's a question from B.O. Lighter. When Kato lived at Gretna Green for 6 months, was he living in the guest house? Were you living in the guest house?
Okay. It was separate from the house. There was no connection. It was a house in the backyard.
Okay.
Wonderful. It was actually a little fact. The house is actually owned by Scott Valentine. I believe that he was the actor on Family Ties at the time. Last name Valentine for sure. I think it was Scott. He played Justine Bateman's boyfriend in that show. It went on for years. So she rented from him, and I rented from Nicole the guest house, and it was beautiful. It was really nice. And that's where the kids had their own entrance to the main house in Gretna Green. But they'd come in constantly, Sydney and Justin, constantly. And they were, I can't get over enough how fun they were, how wonderful they were as kids. Just, I loved them.
Yeah. How was their relationship with OJ? Because everybody knows Nicole was a wonderful mother, and they probably spent way more time with her because he was traveling a lot. But what was the interaction with him?
Well, OJ was doing, I think, Notre Dame games and football games, gone a lot. So when they saw OJ, they were excited to see their dad.
Okay, sure. Another thing from the saga, Jim Murray, he unleashed this nugget that you and I were startled when we heard it. Jim Murray has a daughter that was in the same recital troupe, dance troupe, as Sydney.
Right.
So he was at that recital that day in Brentwood on June 12th. He was there. He saw Nicole and OJ interact and said it was weird. They were sitting apart from each other. He said OJ was his normal self outside of that, where he was greeting everybody and schmoozing, and said hi to Jim Murray that day. But I just found that so utterly fascinating, because Jim Murray became such a big part of this story, anchoring around the clock on CNN, and to think that he was there that day.
I think the connection of Jim Murray to this is just, it was meant to be for Jim and his career. He was showbiz today, and then the trial became celebrity, became showbiz. So he was the perfect fill-in, and he was there that day. And from him doing that one day where they said, Jim, stick around and do comment on this, they loved it. He must have got a great reaction. He continued, did the 9.5 months more of the trial.
Yeah, thank God it was him, because everybody knows that this was the birth of reality TV, and tabloid journalism just added fuel to that through this story. But Jim's not a me guy, right? He's a legit journalist. He's an attorney. He's a serious reporter.
Yeah.
Like, he could handle any of those things as a career. He could have been just a news reporter. He could have been an attorney, very successful, and then an entertainment host, which he was. But if you give that role to somebody else, they would make it all about them. You would be hearing every day how he was at that dance recital, but he just covered it straight. Yeah. And that's why he was such a good guest for part 3 of the saga.
Listen, Jim is the best. And like I said, his voice has this calming. When you hear Jim Murray's voice, you say, I believe this guy. He's just that, he was on CNN with Larry King at the time. That's when CNN was totally different than it is today. Yeah. Am I right? It's like,
are you kidding?
Larry King, I did
it was a news station back then.
I think I did Larry's show at least 9 times, and I became his friend.
I miss Larry King. I loved his show.
Look at Larry King was the best, and someone said, he always did softball interviews. Maybe so, but he always brought the best out of his guests, and he got what he needed to get out of the guests, and he was great at what he did.
Well, how the hell else do you expect to get celebrities like that on the show every night if there aren't some softballs?
Right.
The last thing a celebrity is going to do is answer a hard question.
Yeah.
They're there to promote and make themselves look good. So that and Larry, he was the master at allowing them to do that. But he did. He was able to penetrate and get some answers from people.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if you know this, Tom, but back in the 90s, Larry King, I was his date at the Correspondents' Dinner at the White House with the Clintons. And that was the opening where Bill Maher was the host, MC of that evening. And he had said this, and by the way, I'm saying this humbly, I'm just quoting the joke. Bill Maher said to next to Clinton, he goes, "I can't believe I'm here with the most popular man in America. Kato Kaelin is here. Kato Kaelin is here." And Larry just gave me a high five, and he laughed and had an incredible time at that correspondence dinner. And that's where an Arab sheik offered $20 million to me if I'd moved to Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
No joke. And I had a lawyer with me that verified it.
Any regrets?
Well, I asked the guy if I was going to get a guest house tent. And that was it.
A guest tent in the backyard.
Guest tent in the back. No, this is true.
Yeah.
I said this, and it was because at that time, I was a popular person in America, and I was at a dinner with 20 politicians, and I was, as you know me as Kato, doing jokes and having an absolute great time of
Did you consider it? I'm 20 million.
I did. I talked to my lawyer at the time. I said, if this guy's serious, find out more.
Okay.
So, and he said he was serious.
Yeah, that would have been a 10,000 square foot tent
Yeah.
with a Rolls Royce parked in front and your own harem.
Yeah.
All right. Here's another question. Can Kato tell a fun or interesting story about Nicole or the kids that he's never told publicly? There must have been a great connection if she wanted Kato to live with her. This comes from Arktown Productions, and you've probably got a million stories, but is there one we haven't heard?
You know, I don't know if I told it this way. I might have said it before, but I always think of, when I think of endearing and what I think the kids meant to me and what I meant to the kids, it's when Nicole and the kids went shopping for a dog, and they got a puppy. It was an Akita, and they were all in the room, and I said, "Oh my God, this puppy's so gorgeous!" And they were throwing around names, and they just were, Fido and naming names, and then they just looked and said Kato, and I just remember they all together. It was sort of like simpatico, and they looked at me and said Kato. We'll name it Kato, and that was. It was tough only because when the puppy started getting bigger and Kato got bigger as the Akita, it was, I remember the kids saying, "Kato, don't drink out of the toilet bowl," and knowing that it was the dog, not me, although there were some weekends where I might have been near a toilet bowl. But no, it's and that was just the most endearing thing. And then People Magazine, I remember reporting years later that Kato had died, and I think they even got on a cover, the Akita Kato. But people associated that Kato died to me. So, no.
You're getting flowers. People are mourning you.
My God.
The K-Train's still alive and well,
K-Train,
right?
send your milk bone to me. I'm alive.
Yeah, and Kato, the Akita, is the dog that was barking the next morning that discovered the body.
Yeah, I think that was another guest you wanted to get, the writer who said it was a plaintive wail, and that became a big part of the case, that he heard a dog with a plaintive wail.
Yeah.
I think that was Pedro. I don't. You've mentioned the name before, but maybe a possible guest, a very successful writer.
Yeah. Okay. Here's the next question. Kato, did Nicole ever confide in you that OJ was stalking her? Did she tell you she was afraid that he was going to harm her? That comes from Department Ford Pink. Thanks for the question.
Well, a lot of the of Nicole of the domestic violence was in 1989. Now I was aware of that, Nicole mentioning that OJ had beat her. And while I was living there in 94, just became January. So I believe her 100%. Mm-hmm. He was violent towards her. I believe he hit her because we have the documentary with the Nicole's sisters. The only time, they argued. The only time I would say was when there's a 911 call that I showed up after the fact that he broke down these doors. And because Nicole and I were hammering the door shut after the police had come, and they said, "We'll fix these doors." So I just remember Nicole telling me that he's psycho, that he came by and he just was threatening her.
Yeah.
And so I just reacted to helping her out and pretty much just saying, "That's horrible." I was always trying to get them back together, but I think there came a point where she finally said, "No more. I can live without you, OJ. You can have your other women now that you want so badly." That I think he, like I always said, he wanted more than one woman.
Yeah.
He was OJ Simpson and he loved women.
Yeah.
He wanted the wife to raise the kids while he went out and did his thing.
And then there's some women that are just magnets, right? They have that charisma, they have that beauty, that sex appeal. They just exude sex, basically they're just men gravitate. One person who's like that is Lauren Sanchez, Jeff Bezos's fiance. Yeah. She's always been like that. I've known her for a long time, and you just get a different feeling. You know, you can understand how guys will do what they do to be with her. Was Nicole like that at all? Because she would have no problem if she wasn't with OJ having hundreds of suitors that would be interested in her. Maybe she didn't like intently give that out, but did she have that inner kind of vibe where men are just drawn to her?
Yeah, I think men are drawn to her, but she's definitely was shy. She was shy around people. She had her personal. When you got to know her, you found her sense of humor. She did not share with very few, but yes, of course, men are attracted to her. She was beautiful, and you know, I think that's what Keith sort of mentioned. Keith Slomowicz on our show. That's what attraction was her. Yeah. He said on our show, I fell in love with her. So Keith mentioned that. So
he said it was the most beautiful woman he ever saw.
Yeah.
Like he's around beautiful women. He was the ops manager for Mezzaluna, and then he opened the Monkey Bar, and he ran the hottest club in Aspen and Beverly Hills at the same time. So you're around that every single day.
Yeah, she definitely was definitely not a flirt. And I think, but OJ accused her of dressing too sexy. But I think that was just an insecurity on his part.
Yeah, Kato, you and I, everybody watching this, we know jealous men.
Yeah.
Right? There's a lot of people like that. They just can't tolerate it. You know, they can't imagine. They want to be with other people, but they don't want them to move on with their lives. And they're just so obsessive. And that just is a constant beatdown of a woman. And it's a horrible thing to do to another person. And you're almost cast under a spell.
Right.
And you're fearful, as she had every right to be, because on top of that, he was dangerous. Right? And he was violent, and he was willing to strike out physically, you know, with his emotions. And man, the jail that she almost had to live in metaphorically, right? Just a prison, right? That she could never escape. And then when she finally got the power to say, I'm done with you, I'm moving on, I'll show you, you know, we can co-raise these kids or whatever, but I'm going to live my life. He just couldn't handle it.
Yeah. Another question that was asked, Tom, is do you think OJ was going to donate his brain to see if he had CTE? And I think that they said that his lawyers said absolutely not. He will not do that. But I think that's something that should have been done. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying that's a reason for him, my opinion of killing two beautiful people. But I think he should have, because of look how common it is now. Common with the brain injury to football players.
Yeah, and back in the 70s, people are getting hit in the head all the time in football. College
totally
football,
different.
You practice 2 or 3 times a day. It's all physical. It's all contact. I played Division I college football in the 80s.
Well, you're the guy that broke his record.
Well, okay,
O.J.
so
Simpson
you know,
record.
it's funny, Kato, you mentioned that, because I do have weird connections with O.J. Simpson.
Yeah.
I mean, you obviously are the most famous one for it, but when I went to junior college before I went to the University of Pacific, and I played 2 years of junior college football, and I set the all-time junior college touchdown record. I scored 57 touchdowns in 2 years. And I really wanted that record. I really did. I had a great first season. I had 20 touchdowns. And then I stuck around for that second year, and I had 36 or 37 the next year. But I wanted to break the record because it was owned by O.J. Simpson. So he played at San Francisco City College in the 60s. I played in 1987. That's when I broke the record. And it was front page on the USA Today. O.J. Simpson's record goes down. So
you got the press clipping.
I'll put it on. I'll put it on the show here. So that was a big deal to me. And then O.J. reached out to me because he saw that. He reached me through Normandale. So he was working at NBC at the time. So I heard from him then, and then I worked for NBC Sports. I was the sports anchor in Chicago when the Bulls won their last 3 titles. So if you watch The Last Dance, right, with Michael Jordan, I was in the middle of most of that stuff. You could see my hand a dozen times interviewing. I was around Michael, you know, all the time, on and off the court. I co-hosted a show with Dennis Rodman, so I was really tight with Steve Kerr back then. So I was really involved with the Bulls back then with NBC, and I'd see OJ at NFL games. So I knew him then. And then, crazily enough, when OJ got busted in Vegas, it was my friend's 40th birthday party. He was the anchor for Extra at the time, and he was also a correspondent there, so he was in Vegas all the time. So we had the hookups at the Palms, right? And that's where OJ liked to stay. And his birthday party was in the Real World Suite, my friends. Yeah. So we were there for multiple days. The night before we did his big birthday party, we saw OJ, and we saw him at 9 Steakhouse. And he was coming up and hanging out with us, okay, a little bit. And it was a little awkward, right? But still, everybody for the last, 30 years after the acquittal, there was this weird draw with him where he would still attract people. So he showed up, at our dinner. And then when we had the party that night in the suite, he shows up. OJ literally came with a full film crew that he had hired because he was trying to shoot footage for a reality show that he wanted to do on himself. And it was weird. It was awkward. I think we asked him to leave. And then that next morning, Norm Clark, who's the big gossip reporter for the Las Vegas newspaper, had a big story about OJ crashing our party, the whole thing. And then it was the following day that at the Palace Station that it all went down and he got busted that same weekend.
So when you saw him, did he know you? Did you mention ever like, OJ, I'm the guy that broke the record? Did you say that kind of stuff? So you approached him then, right?
Well, but I didn't have to because he was around us.
No, but you did talk to him though.
We asked him to leave, I think eventually, or we asked his crew.
That is
it's the crazy things here.
It just blows me away. I don't know. We have time for more, right?
We have time for maybe one or two more.
Okay.
The other thing. Was there anything else that stuck out at you from the saga that you learned? I mean, Alan Park was so good as well. And, Alan's had a lot of time to digest everything that happened. And I love the conversation Alan had with you after the fact, knowing what OJ did. Not at the time he didn't, right? When he's getting into the limo, you had no idea what just occurred.
Yeah.
But having to think about it and then analyzing OJ's movements and antics, you got the vibe that Alan almost thought that was OJ thinking of maybe taking one of you out by asking you to walk around a different way around the house and looking for the bag and everything like that. But Alan, it was kind of eerie the way he mentioned that, not knowing now what he didn't know then.
Having Alan on with the timeline, I thought about that too, of going back there. And I wonder if going back there with the flashlight that OJ, I think Alan said, OJ said we better get going or something, I think. But did he know that he possibly dropped a bloody glove back there? Right? Does he know? Or what if it was found if we had gone back? So, Alan Park on the show is amazing because attention to the timeline was so key and it all matched up. So he made me aware of what time certain things happened.
Okay.
And he was a great guest.
Yep. Okay, I'm going to throw one more out at you, Kato. And this is kind of a technical one. This comes from Lald 61036. Did Kato exit via the Ashford or the Rockingham gate when he went with OJ to get McDonald's? And did Kato at any time see a white Bronco? Because OJ took you there in his Rolls, right? Or was his Bentley?
No, the Bentley.
The Bentley.
Yeah.
Did you see a white Bronco? Do you remember?
I don't remember. I mean, I'm going back. Sort of in your head, you assume that there'd be a Bronco in the driveway and it wouldn't be on the street. I believe we exited on Rockingham and came back in on Ashford for some reason.
Yeah,
because it just seems that the way it would have been Ashford, because the car was pointed, coming around the loop. It was the driveway was one that could be circular, so it would be that he came out it was facing Rockingham. So coming back, he'd want it facing the same way again. So Ashford come to the gate and come and park with the headlights facing Rockingham, and me coming out of the car with the McDonald's and seeing 20 yards away, he's still at the foot of his door.
Yeah.
And never seen again. And then find out later everything that happened and the police at my door at 5 or so a.m.
Yeah, and it's illogical to think that you would remember something like that.
Yeah,
because
it's tough. It's a tough call.
At the moment, you're going to McDonald's with OJ, something that never really happened. So why would you be looking to see what vehicles you see? Right?
Yeah.
You're probably just trying to process that and thinking, he's acting a little strange here.
Yeah, no,
right?
he was just quiet.
Yeah.
Very quiet. Like I said, he was seems like he was deep in thought. And now we know, hindsight, everything deep in thought with the breakups, what was going on in his mind, not going to a recital, and not being invited to a dinner. This is all hindsight now of not being invited to the dinner with Nicole's family at Messaluna.
Yeah. All right. Well, I thought we needed to do this episode just to rehash because that was an intense 3-part saga that we did. I know everybody enjoyed it. Go back and watch it again and tell me, okay, you were at the Brewers game last night.
Well, it's a great night here at Angel Stadium at the Big A, and Tim, I understand Caleb Kalin's here at the ballpark today.
He has been spotted.
Get your peanuts! Get your peanuts! Get your popcorn! The K train is here! Hop on, guys! Hop on the K train!
And he's heavily medicated already.
Get your Vicodin! Get your Percocet! Absolutely not. Straight. I'm the biggest cheesehead. I'm the biggest Brewer fan ever, and I love these guys. Go Brewers! This is the year for the World Series because I'm getting older. Please win and get to the top. We're due.
He stopped recording like
I
that.
don't care. I don't care. I always talk to myself.
Go in the middle.
Yeah, let's see the picture now.
Follow Kato on X. It is a very entertaining follow. Follow him on Instagram as well. But on X, you get the unfiltered Kato when it comes to sports. The Brewers are your team. You have no tolerance if this team doesn't do anything but win dominantly. I mean, they got a 9-game lead in the NL Central, and I bet you're not happy. But tell me, you went to the game last night, Angels and Brewers. What happened?
Twitter X, if you follow me on that, I'm going to break down just a few points real quick. When you're at the game, it's different because you're confronted by the people that you're talking to from the PR department of the Brewers, and you kind of have a different perspective. Watching a TV by yourself and yelling and then tweeting or Xing is different because you're safe.
Yeah.
And I could feel like people, they were so nice to me. It's like when the Brewers win, they go, Kate, a lot of my things I say, Brewers are vomit, diarrhea, and
those are nice things that you say.
I go, this team is so full of poop, emoji. I go crazy. So the head of PR, and he's the greatest guy, Mike Vassallo, said to me, Kato, we've been wanting to hit you throwing a game ball at one of our games, but we can't do it if you keep saying these things. We can't have you throw out the game ball if you continue to berate the Brewers and say these horrible things. And then yesterday I got invited into the booth with the announcer, Brian Anderson, who's terrific, who does the TNT games, and he is just he does like 60 games for the Brewers. He's as you know in sports, he's an icon.
Yeah.
And then he's with Tim Dillard, former Brewer player. I'm in the booth, and if you catch it on Twitter, I tweeted it out. And then the mention of me while Yelich is up of Kato at the game, and I wasn't with Kelly Call. He was in another seat, but we hooked up at the game. Kelly was the president of CBS Network, also from Wisconsin, wearing his Brewer jersey. And they mentioned that part in the game. And it was like, wow, you talk about making my family happy and the Brewer fans. And then in some of the tweets are going, Kato Kaelin, it went from the week was Snoop Dogg, Ryan Brown, and Kato Kaelin. The Brewers are on fire. And then some people going, I believe the players probably hated that Kato was there. And I commented, no, they actually gave me a jersey. They just said vomit.
Hey, by the way,
it was amazing. And Todd Rosiak, also a writer who was terrific to me, and Adam McKelvey, who has the book on the Brewers. Just the great people.
Okay, so are you going to tone it down so you can do the pitch? You got to peel it back a little.
I'm peeling it back. I want to throw out the pitch in my hometown of Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Here's what you have to ask the Brewers. Say, how long do I have to peel it back? If they say 2 months, do it. Maybe you could do a playoff game or something.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they look really good right now.
You're capable.
Who knows? We'll see what happens. But I want to also thank everybody because the comments in our show for 1 Degree of Scandalous, and if you haven't subscribe by now. It's on YouTube. The questions were amazing. There's just so many more. We only have so much time. And God, it's a great doing a show with you, huh?
I know. It's fun, and we're weekly shows. We might even go 2 per week here soon because I think we have the content to do it, and I think we have the audience to do it. And it's our pleasure to do this and to talk about this. And we thank everybody who's really caught on with this show. Share it. Tell everybody else about it. Watch it on or listen to it on your audio channels as well. Because if you're in the car, you're going to miss little details when you watch the YouTube version. And it's fun to go back and hear things that you may have missed. You're going to hear the things that we talked about the Bronco, about the recital, about one other little tidbit was Jim Murray also told us he has size 12 Bruno Mali shoes.
What are the odds of that?
What are the odds of that, right? I know. Same guy.
And I'll tell you what, I think we're blessed because we're being watched over on our show today, Tom. I don't know if you're aware, but if you believe in mythology, Zeus is watching our show.
Yes. We want to thank Zeus. We are in his beautiful brand new studio, West Coast Creative Studio here in Los Angeles. And Zeus, man, you've got it going on over here, buddy. This is a beautiful facility. I hope we keep coming back here.
The West Coast Creative Studios. And people are wondering, did Tom go Hollywood on you, Kato? No, Tom forgot his contacts.
I did. I forgot my contacts. And yes, I have a tinted pair of prescription glasses. You know,
by the way, you look great.
Thank you. And there's a title for this, and my family knows it. I call it the bold initiative of 2024. Okay?
Right.
Tinted glasses. They are prescription. Tom Ford's. Okay?
Oh, I like it. You know what?
I got to be right. I couldn't read these questions without them.
As they say in Midnight Run, the film Midnight Run, whatever Detective Foster Grants.
Yeah. My daughter, Ivana, 17, who owns a Bronco, who's off to Boston College to run track.
Wow, scholarship.
She just graduated from high school. She'll roll her eyes when she sees me. Oh, bold initiative today. Yeah,
I love it
because I don't know how to put my own contacts in. Kato, K-Train,
the K-Train
keep
on
it
fire.
on the engine.
Yes.
Keep it on. Keep those engines firing on the track.
Throwing out a game pitch soon. Everybody.
He will be. We're going to tone him down. Hey, follow us on social media. Listen to our audio. version as well, and go back and watch all of our content. Tom Zenner Scandal. It's phenomenal. We have breakout segments with Tom Lang. We had 2 other episodes with him. We've had a special one with Alan Park, with Jill Shively, with Skip Junis. Everything you want regarding the OJ saga is on that channel. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. We will catch you next week, 1 Degree of Scandalous, with the one and only Kato Kaelin. I'm Tom Zenner. Thank you very much for watching. Hey, if you enjoyed today's episode, make sure you go back and check out part 1 of our OJ saga, June 12th, 1994, with all the key players here. June 17th, 1994, the Bronco chase, and everything that happened on that day.